The race is on for CSPs to find new ways to innovate and offer new applications whilst balancing those investments needed for 5G. And AWS is how CSPs are reinventing towards these applications. John, I know you had a chance earlier to speak with Bill Vass, who is the VP of Technology at AWS. Tell us a little bit more about that conversation.
Yeah, we're going to play a video I had because he couldn't be here in person. He heads up all the technology at AWS. He's one of the most senior leaders at the top of the organization there. He covers 42 different technologies, telco, quantum, you name it, edge. And believe it or not, there's a huge wave of robotics. Okay. We go into detail about robotics and all the machine learning. It's a wide-ranging conversation.
Great, really looking forward to it.
It's awesome. Welcome back to theCUBE's coverage of Mobile World Congress 2021. We are in person and virtual hybrid event. We're here remotely with our feature interview with AWS, Amazon Web Services, Bill Vass, Vice President of Technologies at AWS, CUBE alumni. Bill, great to see you remotely. I'm in Palo Alto, you're up north. Hey, thanks for coming on theCUBE.
Always happy to come.
So we've always had great conversations in person. Can't wait to be back in real life. I know reInvent's going to be in person. Can't wait for that. But in the meantime, Mobile World Congress hasn't had an event since 2019. Okay, many months have gone by. The world has changed radically. You've been overseeing many cloud technologies, over 42 plus technologies from quantum to edge. Lots changed, okay? Tell us what you're talking about at your keynote this year, your virtual keynote at MWC. What are some of the themes and talking points that you're addressing?
So I'll be talking about how our service providers that we work with and other providers are moving to this sort of software-defined networking systems on top of cloud edge services that run in their 5G hubs, along with some new providers like Dish and others that are joining this capability, taking advantage of these software-defined networking, and even where individual organizations are able to set up their local 5Gs using snowballs and snow cones in those areas. We'll be covering what's going to be happening in mesh networking and what's going to be happening on the what we call the on-premise devices, so cable boxes and routers and those kinds of things as well, and how to even deploy the cloud and processing down to those, along with some great industrial use cases and a lot of partners that we're working with.
Yeah, one of the things you look back, and again, we've been covering Amazon like a blanket, Amazon Web Services, and so much has happened. A lot of people are asking, oh my God, I can't remember the last time I was in person at Mobile World Congress. What's the biggest story do you think has happened in this industry for telco since that time? Because again, a lot's changed on AWS side. More and more services get announced every year. Companies are refactoring their business. You got this enterprise dynamic. Certainly the telcos aren't going away. New access methods are happening, more compute power. What's your view? How do you talk to this new change and the new disruption, new opportunity?
Yeah. So I mean, 5G obviously with its latency and extra bandwidth is quite compelling for many new applications, and the ability now with wavelength to push AWS services for all our customers right to that very edge. So if you're an automotive customer, for example, and you're doing connected car, you can process in car and you can process on the 5G hubs. If you're a robotics customer, you can process on the robot or on the 5G hubs. You can do industrial automation on the 5G hubs. So that flexibility to process anywhere and run your cloud services consistently anywhere. So you can choose based on latency and processing power of the device, if you're going to run on the device, if you're going to run on a 5G hub, or you're going to run on a POP, or you're going to run on the core cloud, based on what you need there, your bandwidth availability and those kinds of things. And then lots of different types of networking and the ability to move between multiple radios, things that we've built in, for example, with Greengrass. So a developer can move between synchronous and asynchronous communication and without a lot of complex coding. That's a big deal. And of course, IoT just continues to explode. Huge numbers of devices out there starting to connect, and you're seeing a lot of more things like mobile gaming and AR, VR done from 5G hubs. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, and then first of all, latency is huge. 5G is a big dynamic. We've talked about this on theCUBE before. So talk about the architectural change in the system with 5G. With the low latency, the role of processing power at these hub points. Could you just expand more on that? Because this seems to be a real game changer, because now there's new points to put these processing power in there, and how that impacts the cloud architecture, and what does that mean for value?
Yeah. So what we've done is we've basically extended through a virtual private cloud, or VPC, over network into these 5G hubs. And then we put our Outpost products in these 5G hubs, and we call it wavelength. And so you've got clusters of super high performance compute and AWS instances and AWS services right in the 5G hubs. And our customers can deploy to those. So you can make a decision, like I said, to run on the device, run on a 5G hub, or run back in the cloud. And so it's really a cloud extension locally. And our customers very much looking for what we call the centralized control and decentralized execution. So they can control it centrally in the cloud. They can set up their security, their deployment, their management, and security is really, really important in these environments. And they can decide where to run it based on the amount of latency and processing power, whether it's in the car, on the device, or on these 5G hubs. And 5G, because it has more antennas, it's got this hub and spoke architecture. So it gives you these hubs where you can run a lot of processing.
And talk about the latency impact, and what's the impact of the application? So VR and robotics, which you mentioned earlier, are ones that obviously latency specific. Anyone who played a video game and works with VR knows what happens if there's lag. So what's the impact to the apps that are running at these hubs?
So we have the ability with our actually game tech products for you to build mobile apps where you can decide that it's going to run in that 5G hub. And for things like virtual reality and augmented reality, you need very low latency, or you can get kind of seasick wearing those things, which you don't want to have happen, obviously, to your users and your gamers. And of course, the ability to stream to mobile devices from that 5G hub, and super low latency, especially in massive online games where you're playing other players. If you and I are playing and I get too much latency, you'll kill me, and I'm not be unhappy. Yeah, exactly. I'll look frozen to you, right? And so that's really important. In robotics, it's pretty interesting. We've done experiments on what you would run on the robot and what you could run on the hub. And as long as you've got less than 30 milliseconds latency, you can run an awful lot on that hub. When you start to exceed that, like the bipedal robots start to, look like a drunken sailor, so you don't want to do that. You probably want to run the balancing algorithms on the robot anyway, but the ability, again, to have a very inexpensive robot in your house or your manufacturing without much processing power, but its brain extends to the 5G hub. So you have this cheap robot that's super smart when it's connected. It's pretty amazing.
Talk about the impact of developers, because now you start getting these application benefits, as you mentioned. What's the developer going to look like? Because now you're going to have more use cases, and the theme here at Mobile World Congress is ecosystem. Openness is driving a lot of change, more access methods, because there's more radios, right? There's more wireless, there's more everything. Right. There's a more theme here. So with more, there's more capabilities. What's the impact to developers?
So one of the things we built out is this a platform called Greengrass, and Greengrass runs on devices that are powerful enough to have an operating system on. We also have full platform without OS, where it acts as the OS, a product called FreeRTOS for MCUs and other devices as well. And those are getting to be all connected as well. And they hadn't been in the past. In Greengrass, we have this, amazing capabilities to deploy containers and Lambda functions. And we also have a machine learning model management system for you, so you can manage your machine learning models locally. And handle the versioning on those as well. And then we have a thing that's one of my favorites, is a stream manager, which lets you discover radios and different types of capability on the device, and then kind of seamlessly move between them. So for example, if you were an automotive manufacturer, we're working with, for example, QNX, which are in 10 out of the 10 automobiles out there as they work on their connected car capability. They're putting this Greengrass capability into the QNX operating system. You can choose when to send what, like, if an airbag goes off, you can stream all the video and LiDAR from the car instantly. Otherwise, you could wait till the car connects on Wi-Fi and stream it then. The Stream Manager will take care of that for you without you having to write a bunch of code for that. So we're just trying to make it as easy as possible to deploy in these environments.
And that's an example of where you're going to see more proliferation, more coverage, more blanket coverage, if you will,
Yeah.
of internet, whether it's wireless or satellite, which is emerging. I mean, this is the new normal, right? Connections are going to be plentiful, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Whether, and a lot of different types of connections as well. A lot of discovery networks and also mesh networking, where we'll see the future where lots of these edge devices will also be extending the mesh of communication. So whether it be on things like LoRaWAN or other, local 5G and things like that, your car could become part of that hub, and you can just kind of carry it along with you and extend to other cars around you.
We're not writing a sci-fi novel. This is actually happening, okay, which is very cool. Yeah. If you've been in the business for decades like we have, this is kind of like, we've been waiting for this. I got to ask the next question. It's a tough one. I want you to tell me what the update is. Okay, all sounds great, but now my skeptic hat says, Bill, great. How do they all interconnect? Is there interoperability? How does it work? Because sometimes it's very hard to make things work together, at least from a packet and then now from an intelligence standpoint. What's your response to that?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot you can do on the interconnect, as you start follow open protocols and handle proper security handshakes and those kinds of things. But you're right that there are challenges there. It's mostly around working around authorization, right? Because security is really paramount here. We run factories and other things like that on these environments, and so we're also one of the cloud providers that meets the requirements for super secure processing for governments and things like that. So that's some of the highest security levels in the world, like a common criteria level 6 equivalent evaluation of our code. So we do things like formal methods on everything. We do, full evaluations, trusted environments, those kinds of things. So sharing and allowing devices to be able to authenticate to each other is probably the biggest challenge in having that seamless communication. Not so much the protocols, things like that. Those are pretty sorted out. Yeah. So we're working through ways to share identity and share across devices and have authentication occur, or share between device manufacturers as well. There's also, a tremendous amount of legacy protocols out there, and trying to connect to those as things move towards MQTT and other things like that, which are the common IoT protocols out there.
Yeah, so basically IoT devices and edge services really are the two things you're pointing at there. Great call out. You answered that, was my next question. So thanks for kind of hitting that in there all in one. Let me get back to the 5G real quick if you don't mind, because you brought this up before we came on camera here about people rolling their own 5G, building their own 5G. This is a phenomenon that I find certainly fascinating, because it's like, who would have thought that would be possible, and the motivations become clear now when you think about the commercial implications. Tell us why people are doing it and what's actually happening when I hear people say building their own 5G.
Yeah, so what they're doing is they're using the 5G protocol and radios, and they're running like on these little snow cones and snowballs and things like that.
Snow cone in his house. I love it.
To provide local networking in places that are network starved, basically, that aren't served by telcos and other things like that. And just some examples of that we just recently did on networking with Intel. We teamed up with them to provide disadvantaged locations with good local networking, so they can share 5G. 5G is an interesting protocol. You also kind of see it in some cases at sports arenas and things like that too, which is pretty interesting. And those are usually run by the telcos. They're building kind of local 5Gs for big sports events and stuff like that, to make sure that the NASCAR cars stream the data correctly and all those kinds of things. It's pretty exciting. I think it's it's a brave new world as far as that goes.
It'll be very good to see the creativity of what comes from that. I was just thinking, my next family reunion, we're all geeks and nerds. We'll have our own 5G picnic or party, bring your own 5G, roll your own 5G. Bill, that's great stuff. Final question I want to ask you real quick is that, looking at the past couple of years, because again, back to the last show that they had in person was 2019, a lot's changed. What has been the biggest pressure point for the telcos during the pandemic? And as we come out of it, you see in this new brave world of services, more IoT devices, more wireless, you got satellite, you got more radios, you got more openness going on. What's been the big issues for these carriers and operators and telcos?
Well, I think the bandwidth demands and the latency demands have gone through the roof during COVID. I mean, and I got to hand it to all of the telco providers out there that they have done an amazing job stepping up for it. I mean, could you imagine the world if we didn't have a video teleconferencing and all these other things, streaming movies and things like that, streaming games and game operations have just exploded. Remote medicine, most of my doctor's appointments have been through Zoom now, right? For example. And so that has really put a load on the networks, and they've really stepped up. I mean, we owe them in some cases a great debt in the amount of work that they've done, and they continue to work, and send their linemen out and other things like that during all this, and continue to scale. And we were right along there working with them on scaling and deploying these 5G hubs, but also just the existing 4G and cable networks and fiber and all those things. I think it's connectivity has been the thing that made it possible for us all to work during COVID, right? And we should not forget that. It's been
the huge
really
pressure on the bandwidth. They've streamed our movies for us. They've streamed the games for us. They've gotten faster. It's been really a good debt to society, I agree. Final question for you real quick while you got you here. When people say the role of the public cloud is going to be a driver for the new telco cloud, what do you say to that when people say that? When someone says, explain to me the importance of public cloud or the importance of cloud in this new way for telco, what's the impact? How do you talk about it?
Well, I think of it more as, being able to push the cloud out to the edge, and then the telcos being able to take advantage of that with soft switching and other things like that, and being able to do new types of engaging applications, whether it be robotics or ML or customization for their customers, and sort of the freedom to take the cloud innovation and push it right out to the edge, and the freedom to innovate like the cloud on the networks, and then also really, for AWS customers, it really opens up a new world, because now you can push your app into these hubs as well, seamlessly, just like you do on AWS, and get very close to your customers, whether you're trying to do, manufacturing control system or gaming or telemedicine or, any of these kinds of things. As that connectivity continues to improve, more and more as possible, but the ability to push it right to the edge, whether it's on the device, the 5G hub, or a POP, or a local zone, really gives the telcos a lot of flexibility, but gives our customers a lot of flexibility. And I think it's a nice marriage between the two.
So much enablement there. Really appreciate, Bill, you coming on and sharing your point of view around telco cloud and Mobile World Congress. I know you do a lot within AWS. You got cool quantum, variety of other cool things. Big stuff, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much, John.
Appreciate it. Bill Vass, Vice President of Technology at AWS, Amazon Web Services, great CUBE alumni. He oversees more than 42 cloud and edge technologies that allow Amazon customers to really kind of change the game, not only re-platforming their apps, refactoring their business. This is kind of what's going on in the telco business. I want to thank Bill and AWS for contributing. Thank you.
What a great chat with Bill there, John.
Mind-blowing.
First of all, I hope we're all invited to your 5G family picnic. But more importantly, what was it like speaking to Bill? I mean, it's huge.
I mean, mind-blowing. He's just such an expert. He's Vice President of Engineering, Technology, and he mentioned some things in there, obviously about 5G, but one of the things that I found interesting, because Elon Musk is giving the keynote tonight, here virtually, the whole space and surface area of technology is so radically different and more, and it's causing massive amounts of new creative and innovation. So entrepreneurial activities up, new kinds of things are being built, new companies are being built. So it's going to put a lot of pressure on the incumbents. That are they going to be in the way? Are they going to be displaced? So I found that fascinating, and also the just the mindset of bringing in this latency thing with robotics. Just to me, it reminds me of like when phones went from like analog to digital, and then digital to iPhone. There was a step function different change of experience. That's kind of happening now at a world level with new stuff. So you can almost see the completely mind-blowing new use cases. Like I mean, robotics, what that's going to mean, like just comes to life with low latency. I mean, it's just like, it's pretty radical. I mean, I just think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it is. Now, I know that wasn't the only leader at AWS that you managed to speak with. You also talked with Adolfo Hernandez, who is Vice President, Global Telco Business Unit at AWS. So tell us a tiny bit about that, and then we'll bring on the video.
So Bill's the super geek over there, driving all the innovation, and now you get the business leader who's got the telco experience, but also what I found interesting is that he's the managing director, so he's doing a lot of the leadership around how the business model evolution's changing, and how the assets of, because the telcos have all these assets. And so, to me, I was fascinated by like what happens with them. It's a lot of money. They spent a lot of cash to deploy things. Are they going to be bought out? Are they going to be rolled up? Will they expand on it? What happens with all that asset base? So he kind of talks about that. So great interview there, but then a business kind of perspective. And he brings in Open RAN, which again, another new emerging thing, part of this openness. So he talks about that too. So that's another good interview.
Perfect. Well, setting the scene perfectly, John. Thank you so much. So let's jump straight into that video and see the chat for ourselves.
Welcome back to theCUBE's coverage of Mobile World Congress 2021. We're here in person and remote. This is a physical and virtual. It's a hybrid event, and theCUBE's got wall-to-wall coverage. I'm Sean Furrier, your host of theCUBE. We had a great guest here, Adolfo Hernandez, Vice President, Global Telco Business Unit for Amazon Web Services, AWS. Adolfo, thank you for coming on remotely for this virtual hybrid Mobile World Congress.
Thanks for having me, John. Exciting.
You have an impressive background in telecom industry, and over the years, the technology industry has been great innovation. We've seen, I mean, how many G's we've gone through, but I remember the days when Wi-Fi wasn't even around. So you got a complete change in the past couple decades. This year, more than ever with the pandemic, coming through this, you're starting to see some clear visibility on the trends. And also, this is the first Mobile World Congress in person since 2019. So a lot has changed. What is your view on the marketplace, and what is your message you're telling the telecom industry from Amazon? In your perspective, what do you see?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, John. This is a fascinating time to be on the cloud, to be at Mobile World Congress. I remember Mobile World Congress 2020 was the first event that actually got cancelled. So that was the beginning of the pandemic. And now here we are, right, a year and a bit later, working with the leading telecommunications operators, with the leading telecommunications ISPs and solution providers. And what a better place that being doing that with AWS in this very transformational time in this space. We are supporting telecom operators around the world as they reinvent communications in many different ways. As you said, this is not just one more G, right? We are definitely transforming the industry. Like any industry, right, we see telecom operators having to get simplification on their operations and transforming the IT side of the house. So they got the internal IT that needs big transformation. They also got the network IT, everything related with OSS and BSS, and they need to migrate that to the cloud. And we've got a lot of experience, right, doing that with telcos around the world to really help them accelerate that journey to the cloud, and we can help them with data center consolidation, migrations, and a number of things. So we've got examples like GigGAF, which is one of the largest MVNOs, and one of the first ones in Europe to go all in on the AWS cloud, and they move all the data to and the heart of the business there. So once you're sort of dealing with the network, the IT transformation, then you've got to go and look at how do you reinvent and accelerate the delivery of 5G connectivity. Well, that's very current as we're doing now. And we really want to help them because when they accelerate to the cloud, they get more flexibility, they get more agility, they get more cost effectiveness. And if you think about how traditional telco networks were built, where you had to provision a lot of systems, you have to provision a lot of on the base stations, and then you needed to provision a lot of systems on the cloud, on the RAN side, and then you needed to put aggregation centers, traffic centers, and then you would have the headquarters, and then you would have all the network functions, right, going from the radio all the way to the center. All of these systems needed to be provisioned for peak capacity, right? This sort of famous Mother's Day moment. As you move to the cloud, right, you can provision on the different parts of the cloud. You can provision on the AWS Outpost. You can provision on local zone. You can provision on the regions. And you leverage right away the experience that we've got and all of our infrastructure, reducing cost, getting a lot of flexibility, and being able to embark just and consume what you need. And an example of that, it's been Telefonica Vivo in Brazil. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago, and they've accelerated their move by deploying a 5G standalone cloud-native platform, and that gives them a lot of automation capabilities. It gives them faster CI/CD, CD. So really cool stuff that you couldn't do in the old ways of building networks.
It's interesting. You mentioned CI/CD pipeline and developers. To me, that's what comes to my mind when I think of AWS, the enablement of developers, now the enterprise. Now you got the telco cloud, and Amazon's not known for being a 5G player, but you guys are enabling a lot of 5G. Could you address that question? How is Amazon Web Services enabling 5G? What's your answer to that?
So first of all, I think I'd like to say that 5G is an absolute great example that this is a lot about moving to the cloud. 5G is cloud native. It's cloud friendly. You can virtualize pretty much every function. You can separate every function from the hardware and the software and move everything to the cloud. And that is really lending itself to move to a cloud delivery model. As we were talking about earlier, we are enabling people to go and take the AWS infrastructure, like AWS Outpost, and bring in all the AWS infrastructure, all the services, all the APIs, and all the tools that you have on AWS virtually to any single location. And that allows you to really deploy things like thousands of cell sites across a RAN. You couldn't do that before. On the AWS local zones, right, you can take everything there, compute, storage, databases, and a lot of different services. And those are perfect for large metro areas where you need to do a lot of network traffic aggregation. And this makes them really good to deploying parts of the network core. Again, that's another innovation. And then you can look at then the regions, and the regions have everything that you need from a compute, storage, and services perspective. And those are really well suited for BSS, for OSS, to keeping the network running and to do all of that. And you can do that today, leveraging existing infrastructure that you don't have to acquire, that you don't have to provision, that you don't have to provision for the peak capacity, and that you don't have to install and manage. And I think that's a serious breakthrough for the industry.
Okay, so let me just capture that, because I heard a bunch of things that I really like. Cloud native 5G. What does cloud native 5G mean for the telco industry specifically?
Well, I think that if I had to put it down to one thing, it's just about making it really easy to roll out. It's just about being able to deploy easily, to automate easily. So you can free up investment, and you can free up resources, and you can free up overhead. You can really start taking advantages of all that flexibility and scalability and automation that you get with the cloud, and you apply that to a network. And that is the very first time we're able to do that in wireless. Yeah. And it's just going to give you a lot of advantages. Look at Dish, right? We made this announcement with Dish that they're moving with one of the industry first 5G cloud native networks out there. Look at the example I talked about earlier, Telefonica Vivo doing that 5G standalone solution. So you're going to be seeing, this is just the beginning, but this is going to be not the end, because there's a lot of interest in getting these benefits.
I saw the Dave Brown announcement with Dish a while back, just recently. So I want to ask you, does Graviton processors play a role in the Dish deal? Do you mind answering that, if you comment on that?
Yeah, I think you might remember Dave Brown being very proud of everything that Graviton 2 processors can do in terms of increasing the price performance, helping telco operators, not only with the price performance factor, but also with the energy equation. So it's just really, really exciting to have that differentiation and being able to deliver that innovation and that value to telco operators in a cloud native 5G network.
I got to ask you about some of the open source and cloud scale things coming together. That's a big trend I'm seeing here at Mobile World Congress. Openness, multi-vendor, scaling up quickly, provisioning stuff fast and easy, leveraging existing technologies, and of course, developer friendly. So with that, I got to ask you, what's all the big deal about with this Open RAN? Obviously radios are key in wireless. What does Open RAN mean? Can you take us through what's the importance of this?
Well, yeah, Open RAN is an industry-wide or mostly industry-wide initiative to looking at effectively trying to apply some of these open and sharing models to the RAN. And as you've got vendors and you've got telco operators participating. But what we do, and you know as well, John, because you've been working with AWS for a while, you know that we're very customer focused, right? And 90% of what we do is what we hear that they're trying to solve. It's the things that matter to them. So when we engage with them, when we engage with somebody like Dish, and they tell us that they're interested in Open RAN, we will go and partner with the right partners who can provide the right solution to deliver on that Open RAN. And you've seen we've signed agreements with the likes of Nokia to do research and solutions on Cloud RAN. You also saw a couple of weeks ago, we did another collaboration announcement with Mavenir to deliver not only Cloud RAN, right, but a set of 5G solutions like IMS, the 4G, 5G converged packet core, messaging and others. So we are engaging with the complete ecosystem on our customers' behalf to deliver whatever they're after. And Open RAN is one of these topics, and we are delivering to operators like Dish and others in the market.
Do you think that this new shift with cloud is going to increase the surface area? Because that to me is the big theme I'm seeing with this new shift as we look at even telco cloud and the edge. It's the classic surface area, and this is well known in the security world, that there's no perimeter anymore. The surface area for security is everywhere, so things have changed. But telco just seems like the edge is expanding. You got satellite, you got space, you got more 5G, more commercial, so much more surface area. What's the impact going to be to the industry and to applications?
Well, I think what we're seeing is 5G comes out there because there is a need for more data, more bandwidth, obviously increased security, new standards, but there is also about latency, right? Latency reduction. And I think that's really going to change the paradigm as we inject this increased responsiveness, this low latency closer to the edge, and we bring the applications and we bring the compute and we bring the storage as we do with wavelength right through to the edge, as we're doing with Verizon, Vodafone, KDDI, SK Telecom, and operators around the world. This is going to enable a number of transformational use cases for society, whether they are in virtual reality, whether they are with autonomous driving, whether it's about automating and getting more intelligence into manufacturing processes. There is just so much potential to transform society. And it all comes back with this sort of new 5G and some of the things that enables, like moving closer to the edge. So as I said, really interesting times.
Adolfo Hernandez, Vice President of Global Telco Business Unit with Amazon Web Services. Thanks for the great insight here on theCUBE for our Mobile World Congress coverage. Really, really great insight. Thanks so much.
Thanks, John. Delighted to be here.
If you don't mind, I'd like to just quickly shift gears to something while I got you here on the industry. Adolfo, you're very well known in the industry for someone who knows how to turn things around. You've done that in the past. You've been part of growth companies. You've been part of companies that have refocused. Telco has been a big changeover. People looking at this new opportunity as a growth opportunity, and people are looking at divesting some non-critical divisions and looking at acquisitions. I mean, the private equity is on fire right now, and you're starting to see a lot more formation because there's more visibility into territory to take. There's more opportunities to be had. So there's more potential revenue than there is you can do on the cost-cutting side. So yeah, everyone I talk to who's been in the industry has got their eyes are really popping out of their head. They're saying there's more opportunities if we can reconfigure our resources, take advantage of cloud. You're an expert in this area. For the folks out there who are in the boardrooms, cranking away, thinking through how to organize for the cloud scale, what would be your advice to those teams?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of insight to be had from the experience that at AWS we've gained through the years, right, of doing this IT. You definitely have to get a top-down vision, right? So it's really got to start at the C-suite. This moving to the cloud for what it brings, right? The faster pace of innovation, the cost reduction, the agility, right? And that's, you've got to be thinking about going to the cloud top-down. Then the next thing you've got to go and say, okay, what are the parts of my operation that I can go after with cloud? Where do I start? Do I start with the IT applications? Do I start with some new go-to-market initiatives? Do I start by infusing some machine learning capabilities into existing operations? Do I start by building data lakes that I can go and monetize, or I can go and use to generate best customer service, or I can go and fundamentally transform my networks? Not every telco is going to start in a different place, but I would say is you've got to start looking at that agility, that faster innovation, that better use of resources that cloud brings to telco for the very first time in a long time, in decades. And then if you're going to do that, I would strongly recommend people to talk to the provider that's got the capabilities, the broadest set of services, the deepest set of services, and the most relevant experience to do that. Because we've been doing that in IT, and we've been working on telcos now for 5+ years, and we've got pretty much every relationship. And as you know, John, this is really important. In telco, you depend on collaborations, on ISVs and software vendors, and every vendor out there, every software company out there will develop certainly on AWS. So we'll be delighted to engage with them and help them move forward.
Yeah, and Andy Jassy, the CEO of AWS last year at reInvent, really kind of made that the hallmark of his keynote around get those teams together, the executives top down, be a builder, think like a builder. McKinsey just put out a report, $1 trillion opportunities that no one sees yet that's coming. So a lot of emphasis on revenue, new revenue opportunities are coming, and certainly this has been something that telco's been looking for a long time, so great opportunity. And thank you for sharing your insight, appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Okay, this is theCUBE's coverage of AWS Mobile World Congress 2021. I'm John Furrier, your host, thanks for watching.
So, John, I mean, that conversation is a really great example of the opportunities that arise when telco and tech meet head on. What was the biggest thing that you took away from that chat with Adolfo?
It's so funny, I meet all the cloud players. Amazon is obviously #1, Microsoft's #2, Google's #3, and they all have their own personalities. And whenever I get the big leaders like these guys, they talk in code and they're trained not to say. My job is to try to get stuff out of them. The last question, I was trying to see if I can get him to really answer that, roll up, acquisitions, and he went into more of the talking points around top-down builders, which I get. But I was seeing if he would answer the question, because what he's done in the past is he has telco experience. Yeah. He's done turnarounds, he's worked for private equity, and there's so much money changing hands potentially coming in the next couple of years. It's the public secret that no one's really saying. It's a land grab. And so Amazon has a lot of power, they get results. Microsoft's kind of like that corporate behemoth that's just like, they don't really talk a lot, but and give specifics. Amazon's results driven, and Google's very techie. So I think Google and Amazon are probably the best positioned clouds, in my opinion, given some of these interviews. And the takeaway is that they hire great people, they know what they're doing, and the question is, who will get to the money first? I think which cloud will win?
It's exciting for us all to watch that race. I just wanted to touch on one of the things that Bill mentioned. He talked about legacy architecture, and this is something, it's the bane of technology leaders' lives, right? Do you think it's always going to be a problem for our industry to develop? Is legacy always going to be around?
Legacy will always be around. It's not a problem anymore because the cloud past 10 years, 5 years in particular, there's proof points. Now there's a playbook on how to deal with legacy. It used to be you have to kill the old to bring in the new. That playbook's over. You can actually keep the old and bring in the new by using containers and cloud technologies. And the people who have figured this out have really made their businesses so much better and more employment, they're more hiring. The people who don't do it pretty much go out of business.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, John. Great interviews there.